In the quiet hush of St. Mary's Church, on a rainy Sunday afternoon in a small American town, a little girl named Emily knelt at the altar, her small hands clasped tightly, eyes squeezed shut. "God," she whispered, her voice soft like a secret, "I just want a dad for mommy. She's so sad all the time. Please, make it happen." Unbeknownst to her, in the shadows of the pews, a wealthy man named Jonathan listened, his heart stirring in ways he hadn't felt in years. Emily was 7 years old, with curly brown hair tied in pigtails and freckles dotting her nose like stars on a clear night. She lived in a cozy but worn-out house on Maple Street with her mother, Sarah. Sarah was a single mom, working long hours at the local diner to make ends meet. Her days started before dawn, flipping pancakes and pouring coffee for truckers and families passing through. By evening, she'd come home exhausted, her smile fading a little more each day. Emily noticed it all, the way Sarah's eyes would glaze over when she stared at old photo albums, or how she'd sigh deeply while paying bills at the kitchen table. The church was their weekly refuge. It stood tall at the edge of town, its stone walls weathered by time, stained glass windows casting colorful patterns on the wooden floors. The air inside always smelled of polished oak and faint incense, a comforting scent that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Emily loved the silence here, broken only by the occasional creak of a door or the soft murmur of prayers. It was a place where she felt safe to ask for miracles. That particular Sunday, the rain pattered steadily against the roof, creating a rhythmic backdrop to Emily's plea. She had been thinking about it for weeks. At school, her friends talked about their dads, so how they played catch in the backyard or fixed bikes on weekends. Emily's dad had left when she was just a baby, a hazy memory Sarah rarely spoke about. "We're okay, just you and me," Sarah would say, hugging her tight. But Emily saw the loneliness in her mom's eyes, the way she avoided holiday gatherings where families gathered whole. As Emily finished her prayer and opened her eyes, she glanced around the empty church. The candles flickered gently, casting dancing shadows on the walls. She didn't notice the man in the back row, dressed in a simple gray coat that hid his expensive suit underneath. Jonathan Hale was a millionaire, owner of a tech company in the city nearby. He had built his fortune from nothing, starting with a small garage invention that turned into a global empire. But success came at a cost: a long nights alone, a string of failed relationships, and a heart that had grown distant from the simple joys of life. Jonathan hadn't planned to be in church that day. He was driving through town on business when the rain forced him to pull over. Something drew him inside, perhaps the memory of his own childhood prayers, or the emptiness he'd felt lately. He sat quietly, listening to the storm outside, when Emily's voice reached him. Her words hit like a gentle wave, stirring memories of his late wife, who had passed years ago, leaving him childless and adrift. "A dad for mommy," she had said. It was innocent, pure, and it cracked open a part of him he thought was sealed forever. Outside, the rain began to ease as Emily skipped down the aisle, her red raincoat swishing. Sarah waited at the door, umbrella in hand, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was 32, with kind blue eyes that held a quiet strength. "Ready, sweetie?" she asked, taking Emily's hand. They walked home together, puddles splashing under their boots. The town was quaint, tree-lined streets, white picket fences, and neighbors who waved from porches. But for Sarah, it sometimes felt like a cage, reminders everywhere of what she lacked. That evening, as Sarah tucked Emily into bed, the girl looked up with wide eyes. "Mommy, do you think God hears us?" Sarah paused, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "I think so, honey." "Why do you ask?" Emily hesitated, then whispered, "I prayed for something special today." Sarah smiled softly, her heart aching a little. She kissed Emily goodnight and turned off the light, the room filling with the glow of a nightlight shaped like a star. Downstairs, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, bills spread out like unwelcome guests. The rent was due, the car needed repairs, and her shifts at the diner barely covered it all. She rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of it press down. Tears welled up, but she wiped them away quickly. "We'll be fine," she murmured to herself, as she always did. Outside, the street lights hummed softly, casting a golden hue through the window. The next morning dawned bright, the rain giving way to a crisp autumn breeze. Leaves rustled in shades of orange and red, swirling along the sidewalks. Emily skipped to school, her backpack bouncing. While Sarah headed to work, the diner was bustling with clinking plates, the sizzle of bacon, chatter filling the air. Sarah moved with practiced grace, refilling coffees and taking orders, her apron stained from spills. Jonathan, meanwhile, couldn't shake Emily's prayer. He had returned to his sprawling mansion in the city, overlooking manicured gardens and a private lake, but the luxury felt hollow now. He paced his study, lined with bookshelves and awards, thinking about the little girl and her mom. A quick search on his computer using public records and a bit of discretion revealed their names and address. Sarah Thompson, single mother, hard-working waitress. Emily, bright student at the local elementary. It wasn't hard for a man of his means. He decided to visit the diner anonymously. Dressed down in jeans and a flannel shirt, he blended in like any traveler. The bell jingled as he entered, the smell of fresh pie welcoming him. Sarah approached with a menu. "What can I get you?" she asked, her voice warm despite the fatigue in her eyes. Jonathan ordered coffee and eggs, watching her quietly. She was kind to everyone, laughing with regulars, helping a child with a spilled drink. It reminded him of his wife, her gentle spirit. As days passed, Jonathan returned to the diner often. He struck up casual conversations with Sarah, learning about her life in bits and pieces. "Raising a kid alone isn't easy," she admitted one afternoon, wiping the counter. "But Emily's my world." Jonathan nodded, sharing vague stories of his own losses. Tension built slowly in his mind. Should he reveal himself, help them outright? He worried about overwhelming them, about seeming like a stranger with ulterior motives. Emily, oblivious, continued her routines. After school, she'd play in the park, swinging high and imagining adventures. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pinks and purples, she confided in her best friend, Mia. "I prayed for a dad. Think it'll work?" Mia shrugged, kicking leaves. "Maybe. My mom says miracles happen sometimes." Back home, Sarah noticed the regular customer, polite, thoughtful, always leaving generous tips. "He's nice," she told her sister on the phone. "Makes the day a bit brighter." But bills piled up, and tension rose. The car broke down one morning, stranding them. Sarah called in late to work, frustration bubbling. "Why does everything have to be so hard?" she whispered, tears falling as Emily watched worriedly. Jonathan learned of the breakdown through an overheard conversation at the diner. That was his cue. He arranged for a mechanic to fix the car anonymously, leaving a note, "From a friend." Sarah was baffled but grateful, her spirits lifting slightly. Yet the rising tension in her life continued. A notice from the landlord about rising rent. Emily catching a cold that kept her home from school. One crisp afternoon, as leaves crunched underfoot, Jonathan decided to act. He visited the church again, finding Emily there alone after school. Sarah had asked her to wait while she ran errands. Emily was drawing on a pew, humming softly. Jonathan approached gently. "Hi there. Remember me?" Emily looked up, tilting her head. "You're the man from the diner." He sat beside her, the wooden bench creaking softly. "I heard your prayer that day, about a dad for your mommy." Emily's eyes widened. "You did?" Jonathan nodded, his voice steady. "I'm Jonathan, and I think I can help, if you'll let me." The twist unfolded gently. Jonathan revealed his story, his wealth, his loneliness, how her words touched him. He wasn't offering marriage or instant family, but friendship first. "Maybe I can be a friend to you both. Help with things, like a uncle or something." Emily beamed, hugging him impulsively. God answered. Sarah, arriving moments later, listened in surprise as Emily explained. At first, she was cautious, as strangers didn't just appear with offers of help. But Jonathan's sincerity shone through. Over coffee that evening, in their modest living room with faded curtains and family photos on the walls, he shared more. "I've been alone too long. Your daughter's prayer reminded me of what's important: a connection, kindness." Weeks turned into months. Jonathan became a fixture in their lives. He helped with repairs around the house, the creaky door now swinging smoothly, the leaky roof patched. He funded Emily's art classes, watching her paint with joy. Sarah found herself opening up, laughter returning to her eyes. They shared picnics in the park, autumn leaves falling like confetti, hot cocoa warming their hands. Tension eased as bonds grew. One evening, under a starry sky, Sarah and Jonathan walked along the riverbank, water murmuring softly. "I never expected this," she said. He smiled. "Neither did I. But sometimes, prayers are answered in unexpected ways." The breakthrough came on Christmas Eve. Snow blanketed the town, lights twinkling on houses. At church, Emily knelt again, whispering thanks. Jonathan stood beside Sarah, their hands brushing. He proposed not marriage yet, but a promise to build a future together, step by step. In the end, they became a family. Jonathan moved to town, his mansion sold for a simpler home nearby. Emily had her dad figure, Sarah her partner, and Jonathan found purpose beyond wealth. The church bells rang clear, a symbol of new beginnings. Life teaches us that miracles often come through listening hearts. If you're feeling alone, reach out to pray, connect, and watch how the world responds. Perhaps your own story awaits.